What's up, everybody? This is me again. I took an opportunity to I guess add to part 2 again because I'm still pulling together a lot of stuff that I want to do for part 3. So I figured I might as well add to part 2. And, because I'm getting more stuff, as you know, and I have yet another Arcadia tier list for it looks like what's going to be January 2011. And so I'm going to show you that, and I'm going to show you a couple other things. I'm going to read this thing from the judge and try to get your input from that. But first thing I'm showing you all this power-up interview. I listened to it. This podcast is pretty lengthy, but I think it is very good. I think it is something that a lot of you should listen to. It's a power-up episode number 44, Desmond on KOF. And he's talking with Osiron about a couple of things, such as his personal fighting game history, dedicated player face. Y'all can read KOF's popularity related to Street Fighter, the KOF scene, how it should emulate Smash scene, and then traveling and learning. He talks about a couple of things. Now, I also have, I'm scheduled to do an interview myself with Osiron in January, which, is 3 weeks from now, really. So, as soon as I get that interview up, I will let you guys know, and I'll link you to it, tell you like I'm doing here. But if you wonder where that link is, let me see if I can't get up, because I have a lot of stuff up. www.powerfighters.com/2010/12/powerup episode. You see the link. That's the link right there, so you can get to it. And I apologize for the shaky camera right now, but I don't want to hook up my tripod just to do these interviews things right now, so just deal with it. Sorry. Okay, moving on. But yeah, I would highly recommend y'all check that out because I think it's pretty good. It's very good. It's good insight from Desmond talking about it. And thanks, Osiron, for that. Now, I'm going to, before I get to this thing by the judge, I want to show y'all the latest tier list. Or not the tier list, but whatever. The Arcadia top 10 for, it looks like it's going to be for January 2011. And let's take a look at this. Bloodline Rebellion falls to 3. You got Gundam number 2. And yeah, you got a Gundam game, that's number 1. You got Tekken 6, Bloodline Rebellion number 3. BlazBlue Continuum Shift number 2 is number 4. King of Fighter 13 jumps a slot to number 5. Arcana Hot 3 is number 6. King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited Match makes another jump to number 7. Street Fighter 4 number 8. Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown 9. Number 10 is Sengoku Boxer X. Now, guys, to keep in mind, I've seen his other comments, the reason I'm showing this, yeah, sure, it's about KOF and how, people are ignorant to KOF. But as I've told you before, people have it's like they live in a bubble. These Street Fighter players, a lot of them, they live in a bubble. It's like those that play Street Fighter 4 and those that do not. And that is a stupid mentality. That's basically what it is. It's like you're either with us or you're a nobody. You're nobody because you don't play Street Fighter. And I mean, apparently, these people got to realize that that's not what most of the country plays. I mean, they'll play, as I told you, KOF is like soccer, Street Fighter is like basketball. So these people need to realize that the world, as I told you, the world does not revolve around Street Fighter in Japan. The world doesn't even revolve around King of Fighters, even though it's the most played King of Fighting game. But every country has its own thing. I mean, every country plays its own stuff. And you see there's a lot of games that are up here like BlazBlue and, the other one I showed, Melty Blood. And there's a lot of other games that don't get a lot of recognition that should be getting a lot of recognition. In the USA, I mean, it's unfortunate. But, a lot of these games, they take a back seat to Street Fighter. And as I say, it creates those that play Street Fighter 4 and those that do not mentality, which I do not agree with. So, as you see, you're taking a look, Street Fighter 4 is back on the list, but it's still underneath King of Fighters. And both of them, 2002 Unlimited Match and 13. So, I just wanted to show y'all that. And now I'm going to read to you all this thing that is from the judge. It's his input on a bunch of things, and I'm going to read it to you guys because I think it'd be I don't know if y'all can see this stuff, but I think it's a pretty good input. Now, it's pretty long, but I'm going to read it to you, and I'm going to end on that, and, pick your brain, see what you think to it. Okay, I'm going to get straight to the point. Fighting games such as, and basically what he's talking about is why KOF is neglected in the United States. He says, I'm going to get straight to the point. Fighting games such as King of Fighters, Arcana Heart 3, Melty Blood, and other titles are clearly neglected in the United States. Before the release of Street Fighter 4, the U.S. was already a weak country in terms of fighting game players and skill level. These more Japanese-oriented fighting games, where the company's primary business interests in Japan, were already weak in numbers before the release of Street Fighter 4. But as of Street Fighter 4's release and unforeseen popularity, the game has now established itself as the #1 fighting game in the U.S., and has recently proven that some of our top players can compete with the big names from Japan, which is widely recognized as for having the strongest players in almost any fighting game, Japan being, which I told you about that. But, I told y'all about that. I'm going to explain why KOF and possibly other lesser titles are either neglected or not played seriously in the US. Street Fighter series. Let's face it, Street Fighter 2 is often credited for the control scheme that some of these fighting games use. So it's often credited as the first fighting game, and other titles following, such as control schemes, such as are called copies of wannabes. When you have both Street Fighter and Capcom holding such titles, it immediately flocks attention to the Street Fighter series. And basically, he starts talking about the plane that you're on and stuff like that. And I'm having here so I can read because I don't want to take too much time reading all of it. But basically, I'm gonna highlight some more schemes. Basically, he's I'm gonna talk about, let's say, go to the Neo Geo scheme. So if y'all want to copy this, I have it, but it's pretty lengthy, and I'm just showing y'all it's pretty good. But basically, he highlights how a lot of things are different in KOF from Street Fighter. Street Fighter 2, people attribute that to being first. He talks about the Neo Geo system being very expensive when it first came out, which is true. And you had to pay like $700-800 for a Neo Geo system and $200 per game, which Desmond also talks about in his power up thing. And that deterred a lot of people, and that's true too. And he talks about how they went bankrupt and they came back as SNK Play More, and they didn't realize that they need to put the Neo Geo system to rest because you had other systems with better graphics. Now he's also talks about Japanese culture versus U.S. culture and the mindset of how U.S. culture is basically on based on convenience when it comes to people not wanting to travel, and for Japan it's a higher emphasis on mastering your trade. He says, and the people dedicate themselves to doing whatever's necessary in Japan to getting better, and in the U.S. they don't. They don't do that. It's a convenience thing, and so because of that, these people put the Japanese on the pedestal, and and through this laziness and ignorance, it's predetermined by these players, these American players, they cannot beat the Japanese, and they don't progress because of that. Another thing he's talking about is, 1 versus 1v1 versus 3v3, and he's talking about how basically it's gonna be easier. It's easier for people to learn Street Fighter because it's a 1v1 game versus KOF, which is 3v3, and so that also scares people. And then he goes into tier list, which tier list, because it's a 3v3 game, for KOF, it's people they kind of that's the argument they use against KOF. Is a tier list, which I tell people there's different tier lists in different countries. So people see one particular tier list in Japan or whatever, and all of a sudden it's like it's the freaking word of God, so to speak. And that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The only people that are if they're putting these things on, it's like you say, he's putting them on a pedestal, and it's true because people googling over these tier lists as being the end all be all. They need to realize every country has its own tier list, and if you don't have your own tier list, guess what that means? You're not playing the game enough. And that's what I tell you. If you don't have your own real tier list and you're copying someone else's, that means you don't play the game enough. Which means, guess what you need to do? You need to play the game enough. That's what I tell you. You need to start playing a lot more. Playing people who know what they're doing. That's what you need to start doing. And stop, gawking these tier lists. Now, he also goes into something about the SNK community, or how basically an issue is the quarrels within the community. Which you have people who are of the Emil mindset, who they have a strong interest in KOF series, in matchups and stuff, and how they discuss the KOF community and how it's being polluted by scrub-like mentality, and a bunch of people that don't understand how to win, and they show favoritism to Japanese players, and that's basically it. And then you have people of the Dark Geese community, myself. I'm not gonna put myself on a pedestal. I'm gonna say what it says. Then you have members like Dark Geese who take initiative and dedication to get better, and I tap into the community of Mexico, which is generally stronger than the U.S. and I use it, and I feel like people need to step up and put their time and their money into getting better, whatever it takes. And we have these two different factions, the Emil faction and the Dark Geese faction. I'm gonna tell you credit up, those are two completely different ideals. You have an ideal of someone who they believes that Japanese are better, and overall doesn't believe in trying to win the tournaments and stuff like that. And you have a belief of someone like me that believes that you need to do what it takes to get better. You need to travel and do what it takes. And it's not necessarily the Japanese are the best in particular games. We don't know that. So you have two different conflicts, and he's saying these two different conflicts or, you know, stopping people from coming together. When, you know, that's I agree to a point. But I also say that people, you know, need to realize that not everyone is going to agree. And it's how you, you know, deal with those agreements or how you address them is, you know, what's going to get to that. Which, I mean, people got to realize even now to this day. I mean, you see me and Emil, we're actually talking on these boards. We're talking about, you know, stuff. So we're talking through these type of disagreements. And if it's something, you know, I disagree with him, I rationalize it with him and I rationalize it with him. And if not, you know, I just say we agree to disagree. With Mexico versus Japan, we're gonna let the talk. We're gonna let it talk for itself whenever it happens. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna let it the actions between, you know, at the KOF Cup between Hummer and Kula and Osmani and Luis Cha and Bart and Kinsu and Alexis and Lalo and all the. We're gonna let that speak for itself. That's gonna be the big determinant. And, you know, that's really that. So, I mean, these are a lot of stuff to throw at you guys right now. 10 minutes. It's just, I call this a director's cut because I don't really think it's a full 3-minute or full segment to call it part 3. But I'm going to call it a director's cut part 2. Just something to throw at you guys, you know, get you thinking. I want you guys to tell me, what do you think about all this? Give me your input. I'll talk to you later. Bye.